Hello humans, and welcome to another episode of Read Along with Gen X. Thank you so much for joining me. For everybody out there listening across the fruited plains and all over the world via the internet, well, let's talk about the hidden tax. Which game console is actually the most expensive to own? You know, there's a couple of things that I got from this reading here by Al Landis, that I wanted to comment after we read this article, but I found it interesting, guys. This is an exercise that I'm doing. One, because I need to practice my reading in English. English is my second language, and I'm just trying to get better at it, specifically because, I have to read a lot for work, and I'm in a position now where I have to speak a lot more on the things that I'm reading, right? You can't be a good analyst if you're not explaining things correctly to people, and there's a lot of, when English is your second language, and, there's a lot of things in English that are harder to pronounce than in other languages, let me tell you. And right now I'm having I have a huge issue with L's and X's, right? So for example, Arnold Palmer is something that I have to say slowly, or LAX. I really have to enunciate that, right? Regardless, guys, forget my accent and let's get into this article. Racing to choose a console before the holidays? That $449 Nintendo Switch 2 price tag looks tempting compared to the Xbox Series X's $599 sticker shock. Woo. But console shopping based on hardware costs alone is like judging a Netflix subscription by the remote price. You're missing the real expense. I would have used another analogy there, I think. But let's continue. The upfront deception. Ooh, now he's getting spicy. Hardware pricing creates false value signals that disappear over time. That I would agree on. Sony's PlayStation 5 cost $550 after recent price increases, while Microsoft pushed the Xbox Series X to $599. Nintendo Switch 2 launched at $449.99, maintaining its position as the budget option. And that might be the problem there, guys. When $449 is the budget option, gamers are screwed, right? Aren't we glad we grew up in the era we grew up in, right? These numbers tell you nothing about the actual cost of ownership. The real money drain starts after you plug in the console, or the console in his case. I said it backwards. Subscription taxes vary widely. Online playing fees range from reasonable to wallet-crushing depending on your platform loyalty. PlayStation Plus Essential demands $80 annually just for basic online play, the steepest tax among the trio. Xbox Game Pass Core is $60 yearly. But the ultimate tier at $204 annually includes day one access to major releases, potentially eliminating game purchases. Well, that's going to go up to $360, I think. It's going to be $30 a year, a month, but let's continue. Nintendo Switch Online with expansion pack runs $50 yearly, the cheapest subscription, but without new game access. Game pricing reveals platform philosophy. Where you buy games determines whether you pay premium prices or subscription prices. Sony launches exclusives at $70 and maintains those prices stubbornly. You'll pay near full freight for Spider-Man or God of War even a year later. This is true. We all know that. GameStop, just deducts like $5 for used games? That's all they do. I wonder how that works with key cards, right? You're not getting anything. Xbox's same $70 launch prices become irrelevant with Game Pass Ultimate, which includes first-party titles on release day, like the Outer Worlds 2 that's coming out. I'm looking forward to that. Nintendo's evergreen pricing strategy keeps Mario and Zelda games at launch prices indefinitely, like vintage wines that never depreciate. That's right. Once in a while you get a break, but again, at least GameStop, if you're going for physical, you'll get $5 off for used, and that's about it. All right, guys, so the annual damage report. yearly ownership costs expose a platform that punishes loyalty the most. Based on industry analysis, moderate gamers face dramatically different annual expenses. Xbox Series X with Game Pass Ultimate runs approximately $820 a year. Expensive subscriptions, but minimal game purchases. PlayStation 5 costs around $800 initially, but escalates rapidly with each $70 exclusive. The Switch 2 delivers the biggest surprise. Estimated amount annual cost can reach significantly higher levels due to Nintendo's premium software pricing strategy that rarely offers meaningful discounts. Let me just stop here and say we're just talking about buying new games, right? When we're talking about old games, all these platforms have sales on older games and stuff like that. But when we're talking about the latest generation, we only want to speak about last generation games. I mean, that's what people buy these platforms for. The math defies expectations. Xbox's highest hardware price becomes the best long-term value for dedicated gamers. Nintendo's cheapest entry point transforms into the most expensive ecosystem. PlayStation occupies the middle ground, premium pricing without subscription salvation. Your gaming habits, not brand preference, should drive this decision. Okay, guys, so now let's discuss. There's a couple of things here. At these prices, guys, when you're talking about cost of ownership of $800, you're basically erasing the kids that we were at once, right? We're Gen X gamers. If you're listening to the show, you have kids, right? I have grandkids, but you have kids. And those kids are not being afforded the same opportunities we are unless you're of a certain, social stature, or your family has a certain income, if you will. Well, a lot of us, we didn't grow up with money. I grew up in a single parent home because my dad passed away when I was 12. And, we could never afford these prices. I mean, I got my console as a gift. Back in the day, we had layaway. For those of you of my generation, you'll remember layaway. Wow, what a blessing that was, right? I bought my Nintendo NES on layaway. I bought my Sega Genesis on layaway. And pretty much everything after that, right? Oh, man, I miss Kmart. Kmart was the layaway king. $10, they would put anything on layaway for you. Those were the days. But you don't have this here, right? You can see how parents are not going to make this their choice, right? $500 is a lot of money. You're looking at $500 if you want to buy a Nintendo Switch. And the reality is that less and less kids are choosing a Switch for their Christmas gift. Right now, as I've told you before, pretty much all my kiddos, all my grandkids, they play on tablets, right? And it's not that they don't have access. They have Switches, but that's not what they run to first. They go to the tablet. And for a lot of parents, that's going to be the entry point. Why? Because if you have any type of cell phone plan, they'll give you a tablet for $30. The tablet might be the same as the Switch. Maybe it's $500, whatever, if you want an Apple tablet, if you want the, whatever it is. But they're going to play Minecraft. They're going to play Roblox on there, which is what the majority of my kids play. Sometimes they'll play Fortnite, but not really. They really enjoy playing that Roblox and that Minecraft. We constantly have to monitor them. I mean, it's not easy, right? But it's not an expense of $800 a year. Now, I'm a little lucky, because my oldest male grandson, I should say, he started playing soccer. I went to go watch him play, and he's asked me for a PlayStation. He's like, I really want a PlayStation for Christmas. His birthday it's just before Christmas, so he's like, you can do a combo, Grandpa. He's trying to sell me on the idea. So I'm happy about that. He watches me play. But weirdly enough, when he's here, he doesn't even play the PlayStation. He's always Roblox or playing Fortnite on the phone or whatever. But that's what the younger generation is playing. And these companies are pushing out a huge sector of people that are not able to buy these games. And I know a lot of you listening to me out there, were under the same circumstances I was when I was a kid. where you grew up in a home maybe that didn't have a lot of money, and maybe you were only be able to afford the console, and then maybe one game or two games, and you had to trade with your friends, and that was part of the fun. But it was a different time. Our parents' dollars were worth more than today's dollars, right? With inflation and all those things. But there was an entry level for us, even if you were of humble beginnings. It's not like not if you were destitute, but if you were in a single parent home, at some point maybe your mom or your dad, whoever you had, was able to buy you something, right? That's not going to be the case for these kids. $500 is a car repair. Geez, $800? You could buy a bucket for that, at least here in LA. A car that you can fix. But those are bigger numbers, and unfortunately that's not the only cost. I'll tell you the other cost is your privacy. Because when you buy these things, they want your credit card, they want your birthday, they want your address, they want everything because you're a commodity. It doesn't look good. This is why people are turning into retro, right? We're going back to retro. I'm telling you guys, PlayStation 6, if somebody wants to give it to me and my family for a Christmas gift, great, but I'm not buying one. Right? They're already talking about $750 for a console. I mean, it better give me a foot massage for $700. You know how much fun you can have in Vegas with $700. It's crazy. These prices are insane. They're not kid-friendly prices. They're not young man-friendly prices. And at some point, you just have to say enough. And I think that's what's going to happen. There will be a market crash. Somebody's going to have to go. Whoever's just charging these prices. And I think Microsoft is going to be the first one because they don't even want to sell consoles. Right? Their next option is going to be the ultimate premium. If they think that I'm going to pay $1,000 for a console, they are insane. I'm not doing that. I don't care. If you buy $1,000 worth of retro games, you would be a happy person for years. For years. There's so many other options that you can do better with. It's a sad state of gaming, guys. Well, we have our retro games. We'll have things to talk about. We have huge libraries. And, thankfully there's innovations. There's companies like Atari, other companies are coming up with new ways of playing games, whether it's the Chinese market where they're emulating consoles and all this other stuff, man. There'll be options. So, there's hope for people out there. But as far as these three companies, man, one of them is going to have to go. All right, humans, I will catch you on the next one. I hope you have a great night, a great day. Wherever you're listening to me up there, please like and subscribe. It'll really help out the channel. We're trying to reach that 3,000 mark, right? That would be really great. All right, guys, have a great night, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Hey, you made it this far. You might as well subscribe. Make sure you hit that like button and join if you can.